12 and 13. Well, nothing can replace the beauty and, well, the sobriety of just listening to Jesus' words in this text. The comparison, interestingly enough, is not between Jesus and demons, which we've seen a lot of. It's between birds and barns. And we'll see that point to be made as we go. It's a man who, it's between Jesus and a guy who is seen out in his field building a storage shed. So a little different than what we've been used to hearing, but again, very valuable to what we need to learn from Jesus. Well, several things. Number one, the kinds of things we're hearing again in our text today are things that, again, would have been said many places, many times. In fact, Luke 12:2, Matthew 10:26, and Mark 4:22 each say, "There is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known." Yet look at it, each of those three texts are in a very different scene of Jesus' life. Let's just hear Luke 12, beginning in verse 24. Again, beautiful text. "Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which have neither storehouse nor barn, and God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, and yet I say to you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothes the grass, which today is in the field and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you? Do not fear, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." I think it's important to say, and again, we'll talk more about this during the Passion Week of Jesus, but God's love and care for us, Jesus makes it very clear, is not dependent on Jesus dying for us. God's love does not need Jesus' death to be put fully into effect. Put the other way around, Jesus' death will not enable God to love us more or more clearly, as though something was in the way, such as sins that needed to be paid for. Another thing that we hear in Jesus' words, living as the birds, means taking life very seriously. I have some bird feeders out back of our house, and I can spend, minutes upon minutes every day just watching the kinds of birds that come, pick up a seed and fly off, and wondering what is God doing in the mind of that little bird, and taking care of that bird. Living as the bird means that you realize you have little control of your life, and you think you may have control over things, but you really don't. And so you need to only worry about things that are right in front of you, because you cannot control so much. This will take work. This takes practice. I think this is where the energy of what it means to live the Christian life is really best spent. Enjoying toys without letting them get a grip on your heart is how I would say it is what it's like to live as a bird. Most of these ideas spoken by Jesus are meant to be just non-specific enough as we read through them to realize you can't make an application as in a sermon to a group of people. I think of the phrase like, sell what you have in 12:33. Well, sell what and how often? And it's just as though we have to wonder, well, what, for me, how would that work? And I think that's exactly the point. These are the kinds of statements in our text today that you needed to talk to Jesus about when you had him there in front of you. And by application, we talk about with him even today. So again, remember, we are not following a religion. We're following a person. And so these kinds of statements would make the person in that day and would make us today want to be very, very personal in how we apply these things to ourselves. Also, these statements today remind us again that it was words like these that would have been causing a point of no return for Jesus' followers. Again, we don't want to think of salvation as being determined by how a person ends their life. It's a determination of how you live your life. And so 12:49, I came to send fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. Do you suppose that I came to give peace on the earth? I tell you, not at all, but rather division. And I think Jesus is speaking from experience when he says, from now on, 5 in one house will be divided, 3 against 2, 2 against 3, father against son, son against father. So these words are not apologetic in that sense of, well, I'm sorry that this may offend you or your friend. This is why Jesus came, to divide a house from itself, shall we, or within itself. Which brings us to the barns story. It goes like this. The ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. What shall I do? I know, I'll pull down my barns and build greater. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. The problem was not the barns. We need barns. The problem was in effect, you can tell by the implication of Jesus' words, he had no intention of talking to God about his success. In the Bible, suffering does not cause disbelief. Wealth does. In other words, not always, but it can be the greatest enemy of loyalty to Yahweh. Materialism is a danger to Jesus, and that does not mean that it's disconnected from other God worship. That's always part of the story, it seems, whether it's stated or not, that when a person worships other gods, there is covetousness not far behind. Way back in Exodus 18:21, Moses is said to say this, or God tells Moses this: select from all the people able men, such as fear God, hating covetousness. The either or, even right prior to the giving of Torah, is if you love God, you'll hate, it's an either or. You'll love God and hate covetousness, as though those are the two options. And we'll speak more of this when we get to Colossians 3:5, where Paul says, idolatry, which is covetousness. For now, it's fitting to remember Screwtape's words when he was speaking to his demon nephew, Wormwood. You will say that these are very small sins, and this is at the end of letter 12 in the Screwtape letters. You will say that these are very small sins, and doubtless, like all young tempters, you are anxious to be able to report spectacular wickedness. But do remember, the only thing that matters is the extent to which you separate the man from the enemy, or God. It does not matter how small the sins are, provided that their cumulative effect is to edge the man away from the light and out into the nothing. Murder is no better than cards, if cards can do the trick. Indeed, the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. Your affectionate Uncle Screwtape. Well, near the end of our reading, a man is led to ask a very important question, verse 23, 13:23. Lord, are there few who will be saved? When it comes to the end of time, it's a fascinating question. Has God set up a story in which less than 50% win? Less than 50% do what God wishes would happen? It's interesting that Jesus does not answer the question directly. To that question, will there be few saved, he says, strive to enter through the narrow gate. For many, I say, will seek to enter and not be able. He doesn't say it's less than 50%, but he implies that it's a individual, careful decision, and many will not make it. Is it possible then to say that few will be saved? Well, it depends, think of it, on the context of the sample size. Is it few in comparison to your acquaintances or people that you hang with? Is it few in comparison to the religious group you're with? Is it few in comparison to the whole world? Jesus doesn't say. In fact, he does end with, many will come from the east and the west, from the north and the south, and will sit down in the kingdom of God, hinting that many, many in the end will be saved.